Welcome and thank you for listening to this Paragon Edge audio blog. In our previous article, we explored how ATM teams can begin their journey into automated testing with a small, low-risk step by creating a virtual ATM sandbox and automating a limited set of core transaction scenarios. For many organizations, that first step reveals something encouraging. Automation is not as difficult as it once seemed, but a natural question soon follows. What happens next? Once the value of automation has been proven, the next stage is about scaling the approach and bringing the team along the journey. This stage is not about replacing people. It is about expanding, enhancing, and elevating their capabilities. A common concern when companies begin exploring automation is that it might somehow make existing testers redundant. In practice, the opposite tends to happen. Experienced ATM testers bring something incredibly valuable to the automation journey. They have a deep understanding of financial messages and transaction processing, practical knowledge of real-world ATM behavior, and awareness of the subtle edge cases that only appear in production. Automation simply gives them better tools to apply that expertise. Instead of spending hours repeating the same transactions manually, test specialists begin to focus on designing richer test scenarios and improving coverage across the ATM network. Their role evolves from manual execution to test engineering, where their knowledge becomes even more impactful. As automation expands, ATM teams typically begin developing new skill areas. One of the first is automated test scenario design. Testers who once executed scripts manually begin learning how to define and manage automated scenarios that can be replayed repeatedly. Over time, teams build extensive test libraries covering hundreds or even thousands of transaction cases. Another key area is virtual ATM fleet management. Using virtualization tools, it becomes possible to take an image of a physical ATM configuration and render it as a virtual device. Once this process is understood, additional virtual ATMs can be created by cloning and adjusting configuration parameters. This allows teams to gradually build a virtual ATM fleet that mirrors their real-world environment. With this capability, test teams can introduce new scenarios, simulate different ATM models, and test software changes across multiple device types without needing additional hardware. For many organizations, this becomes a powerful turning point, as testing capacity can scale far beyond what was possible with physical devices alone. One of the most important aspects of successful automation programs is that they grow at a pace that suits the operation. The initial phase may have focused on automating a limited set of transactions, but the next logical step is to expand that coverage. This can include adding additional ATM models into the virtual environment, increasing the number of automated transaction scenarios, building more advanced test cases, such as negative testing and error handling, and running larger automated regression suites during development cycles. As these capabilities grow, development teams begin to experience faster feedback on their software changes. Testing cycles start to shorten, and confidence in release timing and quality improves. At this stage, ATM test managers often have a choice in how quickly they want to expand. Some organizations prefer to grow organically, allowing their teams to develop new automation skills as part of their daily work, while others choose to accelerate progress by bringing in additional expertise. In these situations, a staff augmentation model can be particularly effective. Experienced ATM testing specialists can work alongside the internal team for a defined period, helping to accelerate the expansion of automated test coverage, introduce best practices in test automation and virtualization, mentor internal staff, and support the introduction of new ATM models into the virtual environment. This approach allows businesses to increase momentum while ensuring that long-term ownership of the automation environment remains with the internal team. Over time, the external specialists step back as internal capability continues to grow. At this stage, many fleet operators choose to extend their initial pilot environment. This allows them to expand testing coverage and explore additional use cases while continuing to build internal skills. They may add more ATM models to the virtual environment, automate more complex test scenarios, and train additional team members on the automation tools. This gradual expansion helps build confidence and capability before committing to a larger rollout. Over time, Many teams reach a point where the automated environment becomes an essential part of their testing strategy. At that stage, organizations often move from a proof of concept arrangement to a fully licensed deployment, enabling them to take full ownership of the environment and scale it across the enterprise. As this evolution takes place, the ATM test lab itself begins to change. Instead of acting primarily as a manual execution team, it becomes far more strategic. It becomes the place where automated regression testing is maintained and expanded. New ATM features are validated quickly, edge cases and fraud scenarios are explored, and developers receive faster feedback on their software changes. The test lab transforms from a bottleneck into a driver of innovation. Once automation has reached this stage, organizations often begin exploring how to integrate automated ATM testing more deeply into their development processes. This can include running automated test suites as part of release pipelines, detecting defects earlier in the development cycle, and improving software quality before it ever reaches production. In the next stage of the journey, ATM networks can take this further by integrating automated testing into modern continuous integration and continuous delivery environments. Thank you for listening today.